Have you ever felt that growing older means letting go of true intimacy, that the passion and closeness you once shared may be slipping away? In today's video, we're diving into a subject that often goes unspoken yet affects many of us deeply as we age. The quiet transformation of love, intimacy, and connection that comes with time. My name is Esther Griselda, and with each wrinkle and each silver strand of hair, I carry stories of love, challenge, and growth. In this journey of life, I've learned one profound truth. True intimacy doesn't fade with age, it simply evolves. Today, I want to share with you the story of how my husband and I rediscovered intimacy through life's changes, and how, even in the face of unexpected challenges, our bond became stronger and richer. In this video, we'll talk about the real, often hidden transformations that come with aging, the struggles we face as physical changes alter our lives, and the beautiful lessons we learn about love and vulnerability. Stay until the end to discover how we moved beyond the societal pressures of youth and physicality, finding a love that's deeper and more fulfilling than anything we experienced in our younger years. Whether you're looking for ways to reconnect with your partner or simply seeking reassurance that you're not alone in this journey, this video is for you. Join me as we redefine intimacy and find the beauty of enduring love that only strengthens with time. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Hello, dear friends. My name is Esther Griselda, and as I sit here today, looking back over the many seasons of my life, I feel almost overcome with a mixture of emotions: awe, gratitude, and a touch of nostalgia. Life has gifted me with countless memories, and each line on my face and silver strand in my hair is like a story carved by time itself. Every wrinkle is a chapter, and each gray hair is a lesson learned. My life has been a beautiful journey, filled with the highs of triumph, the lows of heartbreak, the warmth of laughter, and the precious gift of wisdom that only years and experience can bring. Having walked through so many stages, from the boundless energy of my youth to the peaceful, reflective days of my later years, I feel compelled to share something that doesn't get spoken about enough. A topic that is often wrapped in silence and discomfort, but one that needs our attention. This is a truth that touches the lives of many men and couples as they age, yet it remains hidden in the shadows: the natural and normal process of penis shrinkage in old age. I know this might sound like a subject people shy away from, one that stirs feelings of awkwardness or perhaps even shame. But from the depths of my heart, I believe it's time we approach this topic with honesty, openness, and a spirit of understanding. Aging, with all its complexities and changes, is not a burden to bear. It's a journey to be embraced. Growing older is not something that diminishes us. Instead, it enriches us, deepens the beauty of our experiences, and brings a sense of wisdom and strength that youth cannot know. Just as our skin gathers lines from years of laughter and sorrow, our hair turns gray with time, and our bodies become softer and slower, the male body undergoes its changes. Changes that, while they may be challenging, are natural and deserve compassion, not judgment. When I think back to my youth, it feels almost like a dream, a vibrant, colorful chapter that fills me with warmth and nostalgia. I remember the first time I met the man who would become my husband. I was captivated by his presence, his vitality, his quiet confidence, and yes, his undeniable physical allure. In those days, our intimacy was woven into the fabric of our lives. It was a passionate, almost fiery connection, one that felt as though it could never fade. Every touch, every embrace, every stolen glance was charged with a sense of excitement and possibility. In those early days, our love felt invincible, wrapped in the energy and beauty of youth, and it seemed as though our intimacy would always be there, unchanged and unbreakable. But life has its way of unfolding, and time has its own story to tell. As we moved through the years together, we began to notice the subtle changes in our bodies. The youthful strength and vigor that we once took for granted began to soften, replaced by signs of age and wear. My husband, who had always been so full of life and vitality, began to experience changes that neither of us was fully prepared for. It started quietly, a small shift here, a change there, but eventually, these moments of change grew impossible to ignore. The first sign came in the form of his declining erections. At first, we brushed it off, believing it was just a temporary issue, something that would naturally resolve itself with time. Yet, as the months passed, we realized that this was not a passing phase but rather a new chapter in our lives. His erections, once strong and full of life, became less frequent, less firm. Sometimes, before we could even fully enjoy those tender, intimate moments together, the excitement would fade, leaving us with a sense of sadness and frustration that neither of us could ignore. I remember the look in his eyes during those times, the way he would look away, as though embarrassed or disappointed, as though his own body had somehow betrayed him. It was a silent sorrow, a feeling he carried with him, almost as though he felt he was losing a part of himself. As his partner, watching him struggle in silence, my heart ached for him, not because our intimacy had changed, but because he felt a quiet, painful shame that he was no longer the man he once was. But here's something I want everyone to know, something that I have come to realize after years of sharing my life with him. Aging is not a loss but a transformation. Our bodies change, yes, but that does not mean our love or our closeness has to fade. If anything, these changes have deepened our connection, making it more profound and more meaningful. Our intimacy is no longer tied solely to physical passion. It has evolved into something much richer, a closeness that speaks to the soul and heart rather than just the body. In those early days, our intimacy was all about passion, desire, and the thrill of new love. But as we've grown older, I've come to appreciate that true intimacy is more than just a physical act. It's in the quiet moments we share, in the comfort of being together without words, in the memories we have built, and in the life we have created side by side. It's in the way we look at each other across a room, knowing that we have weathered storms together, that we have seen each other at our best and our worst, and that our love has endured. So to those who may be facing similar changes, to those who may feel that aging is taking something away from them, I want to offer this reminder. There is so much beauty in the journey of growing older, in the way love matures and deepens with time. Yes, our bodies may not be as they once were, but that does not mean our hearts cannot grow even closer. Aging is not an ending. It is a beginning, a chance to embrace a different kind of closeness, one that is filled with compassion, understanding, and a profound appreciation for each other. Let us face these changes with courage, dignity, and grace, knowing that even as our bodies change, our love has the power to grow stronger. This journey of aging, though sometimes bittersweet, is one of the most beautiful gifts life can give us. And if we can learn to embrace it, to accept each other fully, just as we are, then we discover that love, true love, only becomes more precious with time. In those quiet, unspoken moments, my heart would ache deeply for him, a tenderness blooming in my chest that words could scarcely capture. As his wife, I felt a fierce, almost instinctual desire to be there for him in every way, to support him not only in the physical but in the delicate emotional spaces where his confidence seemed to falter. I saw how this inevitable change in his life was affecting him, how it was chipping away at his sense of self and his masculinity. A part of him that, over the years, I had come to know so intimately and cherish so deeply. It was in the way he moved a little more slowly, in the faint sadness that occasionally flickered in his eyes, and in the quiet moments when he thought I wasn't looking. His sighs, his silences, and the way he would retreat into his thoughts, it all spoke volumes. And yet, amid this tenderness, I held onto something I had come to understand with every fiber of my being. Intimacy doesn't fade as we age. It evolves, deepening like a river cutting through the landscape, leaving layers of love and memory behind. We were no longer the wide-eyed, spirited young lovers of our 20s, chasing after moments of passion as if time would stand still for us. We had changed, yes, and so had the nature of our connection. But that didn't mean that the profound, soul-deep intimacy we shared had to be lost. Our love had grown into something far more beautiful, something more enduring and grounded in a history that only we could understand. Our connection had become a tapestry woven from years of shared experiences, memories, laughter, and tears. It wasn't just about physical pleasure anymore. No, our love had transcended that, transforming into a profound trust, a quiet understanding, and a sense of closeness that ran so much deeper than anything we had known before. We began to redefine what intimacy meant for us, to reshape it in ways that honored where we were now. Intimacy became less about physical performance or proving our vitality and more about embracing the beauty of simply being with each other. It became about sharing the most honest, unguarded parts of ourselves in the smallest gestures. Gestures that spoke louder than any passionate display ever could. We found joy in the simple act of lying together, our bodies gently pressed against each other, feeling the warmth radiating from our skin, the steady rise and fall of our breaths sinking naturally as if to remind us that we were still here, still together. Those moments felt like a world unto themselves, a quiet sanctuary where words were unnecessary. In those precious spaces, we would exchange tender kisses, kisses that lingered not out of urgency but out of a desire to savor the moment, to imprint the memory of our love in each other's hearts. Soft caresses would follow, each one carrying with it a silent promise of "I am here for you," a reminder that our bond was unwavering. We would look into each other's eyes, our gazes lingering, and in those silences, words were not needed. We communicated through the shared history that lay between us, the countless moments we had built together, layer upon layer, year after year. These moments, these quiet acts of love and understanding, were intimate in ways that our youth had never allowed us to truly appreciate. They held a depth and beauty that surpassed mere physical connection, a kind of warmth that filled us with a quiet, peaceful joy. This, I realized, was the truest form of intimacy, one that didn't burn with the feverish intensity of young love but glowed with a steady, enduring warmth. It was a love that filled the empty spaces in our lives with comfort, contentment, and the knowledge that we would always have each other, no matter what changes life brought. This was a love I wouldn't trade for anything in the world, a love that, in every small moment, reminded me of the beauty of growing older together, of knowing someone so completely and being known in return. It was a love that, even in the quietest moments, felt like the most profound blessing. As we walked together through the later chapters of our lives, our love evolved in ways I could never have anticipated. Gone were the days of youthful passion and boundless energy, replaced by a softer, deeper, and more nurturing connection. Our love was no longer a whirlwind of romance or the thrill of discovery. Instead, it was a steady, comforting presence, like a well-worn blanket that keeps you warm on the coldest of nights. It was less about grand gestures and more about the everyday acts of tenderness, the small, subtle ways we chose each other again and again, even as our bodies aged and our energy waned. Our connection was no longer about impressing one another or proving ourselves. Instead, it became a quiet, profound understanding, an unspoken language that only the two of us shared. My husband and I faced the changes of aging hand in hand, supporting one another through each stage. Through this journey, I uncovered one of the most invaluable lessons of my life. True love is not bound by the limits of the physical body. It is a bond that grows stronger, transcending the years and the visible signs of age. Yes, our bodies changed in ways that were often challenging to accept. The smooth skin we once had became lined with the stories of our lives. The strength and vitality that once defined us began to fade. I watched as my husband's shoulders, once broad and unwavering, began to stoop ever so slightly. I saw the spark in his eyes grow gentler, a little wearier at times. And yet, in those moments, my love for him only grew deeper, not despite these changes but because of them. Those lines on his face were marks of a life well lived, and his softened gaze was filled with wisdom and kindness that only time could bring. There were days when the weight of these changes felt too heavy for both of us. I could see the quiet sadness in his eyes, the unspoken grief over the parts of himself that seemed to be slipping away. It was in these moments that our love took on new strength, a love born not of passion or infatuation, but of genuine compassion and understanding. We faced these challenges as a team, refusing to let the hardships of aging pull us apart. Instead, we drew closer together, finding new ways to connect that didn't rely on our physical bodies but instead on our hearts and minds. Aging, with all its undeniable challenges, became a shared journey, a journey that, when approached with grace, revealed new layers of intimacy and connection. We laughed together about the little indignities of growing older, the way our knees creaked when we stood up, or how we now had to squint to read the small print on a menu. We held each other's hands through moments of frustration, finding comfort in the simple act of being there, of knowing that we would face each stage side by side. Each laugh, each sigh, and each moment of silence became part of the fabric of our lives, weaving a bond that grew stronger with each passing year. What truly sustained our connection was the open and honest communication we shared, a willingness to face even the hardest truths together. We didn't shy away from the discomfort or pretend that things were easy. Instead, we spoke candidly about our fears, our hopes, and our dreams for the time we had left. In those quiet conversations, held in the soft light of evening, we found a kind of intimacy that transcended the physical, an emotional closeness that was rooted in mutual respect and unyielding support. Through all of this, we chose to see the beauty in our journey. We chose acceptance over resistance, gratitude over regret. We didn't let the physical changes of aging define us or limit our love. Instead, we allowed these experiences to deepen our connection, to remind us of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. The lines and wrinkles became symbols of our resilience, the visible markers of a life spent loving deeply. And so, our love became not just a memory of who we once were, but a celebration of who we had become together. Every wrinkle, every gray hair, every slower step was a testament to our journey, to the countless moments we had shared, and to the unbreakable bond we had forged. In those final years, our love was not about appearances or the fleeting excitement of romance. It was about presence, about truly seeing and accepting each other as we were. And in that acceptance, we found a peace and a joy that was more profound than any passion we had known in our youth. This love, this quiet, enduring presence, became the most precious gift we had to offer each other. A love that was timeless, boundless, and deeply, unshakably real. As we grew older together, I found myself reflecting deeply on the essence of our relationship. We chose, consciously and lovingly, to focus on what truly mattered, the unwavering love that had grown stronger with every passing year, the cherished memories we had woven together, and the hope-filled future we still dreamed of sharing. To anyone who might be struggling with the inevitable changes aging brings, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that you are not alone. The changes we go through with time don't lessen our worth or the beauty of our love. If anything, they invite us to see intimacy in a new light, one that is even richer, deeper, and profoundly meaningful than the intense passions of youth. Aging isn't the end of intimacy. It's the beginning of a closeness that transcends the physical, a bond built on years of shared life, laughter, tears, and growth. It's a quiet strength that grows within us, a treasure that's only unlocked with time and care. Embrace these changes, talk openly with your partner, and remember that love, in all its forms, only deepens with age. When you share this openness, it allows your relationship to blossom in ways you might never have imagined. But as we navigated these changes, I noticed something I hadn't been prepared for. My husband, the man who had always exuded vibrance, confidence, and self-assurance, began experiencing something that visibly shook him, a shrinkage in the size of his penis. At first, I brushed it off as a simple, natural part of aging. However, it quickly became clear to me just how much this change was affecting him on an emotional level. The strong, proud man I had known all my life, the one who had always held his head high, was now slowly retreating, pulling away in a way I had never seen before. It broke my heart to see him struggling, as though he felt he was losing a part of himself. Seeing him in this fragile state taught me that love means standing by each other, even in moments when words might feel inadequate. I reached out to him, reminding him that his worth to me was untouched by these changes, and that the love we shared would always be far greater than any single part of ourselves. Aging may bring unexpected shifts, but it also brings us closer to the heart of love, to understanding acceptance, and a vulnerability that binds us more deeply than ever before. In these moments, we found a kind of intimacy that was pure and unbreakable, a love that only grows richer with each shared experience and each reassuring embrace. He grew quiet about intimacy, as if the joy and lightness that once defined our closeness had faded into shadows. The little touches, the soft, playful gestures that used to flow between us so naturally, became rare, almost non-existent. Our bedroom, a place that had always been a sanctuary of love and unity, began to feel filled with unspoken tension, an air thick with emotions we both hesitated to voice. One evening, feeling the ache of that silence in my heart, I gently decided to bring it up. I could see in his eyes that he was struggling, torn between wanting to avoid the conversation and knowing that hiding from it wouldn't mend the growing distance between us. When he finally met my gaze, the look on his face revealed everything he had tried so hard to keep inside. Those eyes that once sparkled with warmth, confidence, and desire now looked back at me filled with a painful vulnerability, touched by shame and self-doubt. My heart ached so deeply for him. This was the man who had weathered every storm life threw his way with resilience and strength. Yet here he was, feeling broken in a way he hadn't before, as though a vital part of him had slipped beyond his grasp. The pain in his silence spoke volumes. For a man who had always taken pride in his strength, his masculinity, and his ability to share an intimate, fulfilling connection with me, these changes in his body felt like an unbearable betrayal. He began to shy away from conversations about our intimacy altogether, as if speaking about it might make the loss more real. But it wasn't only about the physical shifts he was facing, it was what they symbolized to him: a loss of identity, a perceived failure in being the partner he once was, the man he believed I needed him to be. In his mind, his sense of self was tightly woven into his ability to connect with me physically, and watching him struggle with this was like watching him slowly drift away, wrapped in a cloak of silent sadness and embarrassment. I wanted to reach out, to tell him that these changes didn't define his worth and that his value to me wasn't tied to his physical performance. He was so much more than that. But he couldn't yet see what I saw. To me, his worth lay in the years we'd shared. The laughter, the tears, the countless ways he'd supported and loved me, and his steady presence through every chapter of our lives. Watching him feel diminished by something so natural, so human, was devastating. It broke my heart to see him wrestle with feelings of inadequacy when all I wanted was for him to know that, for me, his love, companionship, and the depth of our bond would always matter far more than any fleeting physical ability. I couldn't just stand there and watch him quietly suffer, holding onto his pain without saying a word. It was tearing me apart, knowing that he was struggling in silence. I had to do something, anything, to help him understand what was happening to his body, to give him some relief from the anxiety and uncertainty. So I dove deep into research, determined to uncover everything I could about the changes men face as they grow older. I spent countless hours searching, reading articles, and seeking answers. I wanted to find something that could explain all of it, something that would make us both feel less alone in this journey. What I discovered was both surprising and eye-opening. I learned that the shrinkage of the penis with age is not some rare, tragic anomaly, but a completely natural part of the aging process. It's something that happens to almost every man as the years go by, and it's driven by a mix of factors: loss of elasticity in the skin, reduced blood flow, and changes in hormone levels. These are the forces at work in the body, reshaping things over time. At first, I thought it might be something unusual or even frightening, but as I dug deeper, I found that it was simply a part of life, something inevitable. And what mattered most to me in that moment was the realization that none of this meant the end of our intimacy or our pleasure. It didn't have to signal the closing of a chapter. It could just be a new beginning. When I shared this new understanding with him, I could see the immediate relief on his face. It was like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. The tension that had been building between us seemed to melt away. Yet, despite that sense of relief, the emotional burden still lingered in the air. It wasn't just about understanding the science behind it. It was about accepting a reality that was hard to face. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just about physical changes, it was about how we were going to face this change together, how we were going to move forward. As we talked, really talked, we came to a profound realization. This was an opportunity for us to redefine intimacy. We could no longer rely solely on the physical, but that didn't mean we had to lose what we shared. If anything, it was a chance to grow closer in ways that were even more meaningful. The changes in his body weren't a sign of the end of something beautiful. They were the start of something new. A deeper connection, rooted not just in the physical, but in the emotional and spiritual. Our bond could be even stronger and more profound than ever before, as we learned to treasure each other in ways that went beyond the surface. And in that moment, I truly believed that the best was yet to come. As we slowly and tenderly stepped into this new chapter of our lives together, we discovered something truly beautiful and unexpected. Intimacy, which once seemed to be all about performance and meeting certain expectations, transformed into something far more profound. It was no longer about what we could do for each other physically, but about simply being with each other, together in the moment. We began to cherish the quiet, seemingly small moments that so often go unnoticed but are filled with so much love and warmth. I'll never forget the feeling of holding hands while lying in bed, the simple comfort of our fingers intertwined, sharing the most intimate connection, without a single word being spoken. The quiet exchange of tender kisses, free from any pressure or expectation, became more meaningful than anything we had experienced before. It was as though we had learned to love each other in a way that transcended the physical, rediscovering each other's hearts in a new light. In the absence of the intense physicality we once had, we found new and even more fulfilling ways to be close. These moments, though different, still filled us with immense joy and satisfaction. There was an emotional closeness that had always been the foundation of our relationship, but it grew even stronger with time. We weren't just partners. We were soulmates, deeply connected in ways I never imagined could happen as we age. The emotional bond we shared, once so powerful, became even more tender and significant. And it was no longer just about what we did together, but about what we had become together. We learned to communicate on a deeper level, a level beyond words. Our understanding of each other was shaped by years of shared experiences, hardships, and triumphs. We knew each other's thoughts, our desires, and our fears, and we embraced them without hesitation or judgment. I feel compelled to share this part of my life because, honestly, it's a conversation that needs to be had more often. In our society, there's this overwhelming obsession with youth. Physical beauty, strength, and what we can do while we're still young and full of life. We place so much value on these external factors that we forget the incredible depth and richness that comes with aging. With the passing of time comes wisdom, emotional maturity, and the ability to love in a way that only those years of experience can cultivate. And yet, we fail to recognize that intimacy is not just about the physical body. It's about the connection between two souls. As we grow older, we often hear people talk about how things fade and how passion dies. But I believe the truth is quite the opposite. Growing older doesn't signify the end of love or passion. It opens up the most incredible opportunity to rediscover what truly matters. The deep, soulful connection that transcends fleeting physicality, the kind of love that only grows richer and more beautiful with time. As my husband and I continue on this shared journey, we have found ourselves in a place of profound acceptance, a place where we no longer feel the need to prove ourselves to each other or anyone else. It's a deep, peaceful understanding that we've come to, a relief that has swept over both of us. My husband no longer feels the pressure to be something he's not or to meet unrealistic expectations. And for me, the constant worry about the things that are beyond our control has slowly faded away. Instead, we have shifted our focus to the beauty of what we've built together, a life full of rich, unforgettable moments. We have weathered storms, celebrated triumphs, and faced hardships hand in hand. And now, we cherish the love that has grown between us over the years. These changes, these natural transitions that life brings, are merely another chapter in a story that is still unfolding. We have come to realize, through both joy and sorrow, that true love is not about youthful energy or the perfect physical form. Those things are fleeting, and they change with time. No, real love is about being present with each other through every phase, through every wrinkle, every gray hair, and every challenge that life throws at us. It's about the quiet comfort of knowing that no matter what changes, we are here for each other. There is something incredibly powerful in the shared silence after a long day, in the gentle touch that says more than words ever could, and in the understanding that love isn't just a feeling. It's a commitment, a choice to stand by each other, no matter what. To anyone who is walking through a similar path, I want you to hear this from the deepest place of my heart. You are not alone. The changes that come with aging, with time, and with life itself are completely natural. And while it may feel daunting, even heartbreaking at times, I promise you, these changes don't have to steal the joy or pleasure that intimacy brings. They can enhance it in ways you never imagined possible. Embrace these changes. Talk about them. Open up to your partner about your fears, your dreams, and your vulnerabilities. The beauty of growing older together is that it gives us the chance to see love in all its forms. And let me tell you, real love, the kind that endures, grows, and deepens with time, is the most intimate, fulfilling love there is. It only gets stronger with every passing year, every challenge, and every embrace. So take heart and know that love, in its truest form, is not about perfection. It's about acceptance, growth, and the extraordinary strength that lies in simply being there for each other, no matter what life brings our way. Having an open and honest conversation with your partner is one of the most important steps you can take in any relationship. It's essential to remember that love transcends the physical realm. True love is built on a foundation of deep emotional connection, unwavering trust, and the shared history that binds two people together. These are the intangible, yet profoundly meaningful aspects that create the essence of what makes a relationship truly beautiful. As we age, we often face challenges, both physical and emotional, that can create feelings of uncertainty or even fear. But let me tell you this: aging, with all of its complexities and inevitable changes, can also be a source of great beauty, grace, and growth, if we choose to view it that way. One quiet evening, as the soft glow of the fading sunlight bathed the room in its gentle embrace, we had just finished dinner and found ourselves sitting together in comfortable silence. At that moment, I felt an undeniable weight in the air, a heaviness that had been lingering between us for far too long. It was a silence that spoke volumes, one that echoed with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could feel it in my chest, the emotional distance that had slowly crept into our relationship, like an invisible wall slowly being built between us. Neither of us had dared to acknowledge it out loud, but we both knew it was there. It hurt, honestly. It was a feeling I never thought I would experience with someone I loved so deeply. The connection we once shared felt strained, and I realized that I could no longer ignore the elephant in the room. It wasn't just about the physical aspects of our relationship. There was something much deeper at play. It was about us, our bond, our love, our history. If we wanted to preserve what we had, I knew I had to address it. It was time to break the silence. My heart felt unbearably heavy, weighed down by a truth I couldn't ignore, a truth that had been slowly consuming me from the inside out. I could see it in his eyes. The man I had cherished and adored for so many years, the strong, proud figure who had always been my rock, now quietly crumbling under the weight of something he wasn't ready to share. The man who had once exuded unwavering confidence was now struggling in silence with a shift in his body that seemed to have shaken him to his core. I could feel the tension in our home, a silent battle that neither of us had been prepared for. But as much as my heart ached for him, I knew deep down that I couldn't let him face this alone. We had been through so much together, good and bad, and this was no different. So, with a trembling but resolute heart, I reached out to him. I took his hand in mine, my fingers gently enveloping his, offering a small yet powerful comfort. And with everything inside of me, I whispered, "We need to talk." I could feel his resistance, his hesitance, and I understood it. But there was something inside me that knew this conversation was necessary. I couldn't stand by and let him suffer in silence anymore. He needed to hear these words, to feel my unwavering support. I didn't want to push him too hard, but I had to make him see that I was there for him, and always would be. "I know you've been feeling different," I said, my voice breaking the stillness with a tenderness that only love can bring. "And I want you to know that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's absolutely nothing for you to be ashamed of." I could see the strain in his face, the tightness that had consumed him melting away slowly as my words sank in. The fear, the embarrassment that had been so tightly bottled up, was now being freed, exposed in the light of our honest conversation. It was a moment of release, a shared understanding that neither of us had realized we needed until now. The weight of that unspoken pain had been lifted from his shoulders, and I could feel it. Feel the relief that washed over us both like a flood of warmth filling the space between us. There was no more shame, no more hiding. At that moment, all I wanted was for him to understand that it was okay to be vulnerable, to let go of the fear, to know that he was loved beyond measure, just as he was. And as I saw the tension in his face soften, I realized that this was just one of the many hurdles we would face together in this life. But now, we would face it with open hearts, bound by trust, and the unshakable bond that had always been the foundation of our love. As we journey through life, it's impossible to ignore the changes that come with age. Changes that, while sometimes challenging, are part of the beautiful process of growing older. I looked at him with warmth in my eyes and said softly, "We're both getting older, my love, and that's perfectly okay. There's no shame in it." I could see the weight of worry in his eyes, and I wanted to reassure him, not just with my words, but with all the love and understanding I could express. "What truly matters," I continued, "isn't how our bodies look or how they function. The most important thing is the love we share, the deep connection that has only grown stronger over the years." It was vital for me that he understood my feelings, how my love for him had never been about the physical. I wanted him to know that his body, however it had changed, didn't diminish the love I had for him. On the contrary, I cherished him even more now than ever. I loved him for everything we had experienced together. The joys, the challenges, the quiet moments, and the laughter. I loved him for the way we had both evolved, not just as individuals, but as partners, side by side, facing life's journey hand in hand. I loved him for the wisdom we had gained through time, and for the deeper bond that had formed as a result of all the moments we had shared. When he voiced his concerns about not being able to perform the way he once had, my heart swelled with empathy. It didn't matter to me at all. I didn't love him less because his body had changed. It was the exact opposite. What mattered was him, his heart, his gentle spirit, the way he cared for me and made me feel protected and cherished. His kindness, his unwavering support, and the way he still looked at me with the same love as when we first met, those things meant the world to me. What he gave me emotionally was priceless, and that's what I held on to every single day. The physical changes, though inevitable, didn't affect the profound connection we shared. If anything, it made me appreciate the depth of our bond even more, and I couldn't have been more grateful for the love that had stood the test of time. In that very moment, something profound shifted between us, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from our hearts. We no longer felt the need to maintain an ideal that had become suffocating, a standard that, over time, had ceased to serve us in any meaningful way. It was a realization that swept over us like a wave. True intimacy, the kind that truly matters, isn't rooted in physical performance, nor is it confined to what the world expects from us. It's about the emotional bond, the unspoken connection that ties us together, that makes us feel seen and understood. For the first time in what felt like ages, we both experienced a profound sense of freedom. A freedom from the unrealistic expectations society so often imposes on men, a freedom from the insecurities that had silently built up over the years, creeping into our thoughts and actions without us even noticing. It was a liberation, not just from the pressure of physical perfection, but from the fear of judgment, from the nagging doubt that we had somehow failed to measure up. We were no longer bound by the idea that intimacy had to be a performance, something tied to youth, appearance, or the expectations that come with those fleeting years. Instead, we found ourselves in a space where love and connection were the foundation, where the most powerful form of closeness we could share was deeply rooted in emotional vulnerability. As we explored this new kind of intimacy, it became clear that it was so much more than what we had once believed. It wasn't about achieving the perfect moment of physical climax or fulfilling some elusive standard of perfection. No, it was about being there for each other, truly being there, with all the imperfections and complexities that come with age, time, and shared experiences. And as we moved forward, something beautiful unfolded between us. The kind of closeness we found wasn't dependent on the body's ability to perform, nor did it require the validation of external expectations. It was rooted in something far more meaningful, a connection that deepened with every conversation, every touch, every moment shared in the quiet, tender space between us. For the first time, we were free to simply be, to experience a kind of closeness that wasn't rushed, but was instead filled with a depth of understanding and acceptance that only time and emotional connection can provide. It was, in every sense of the word, liberating. As time passed, we began to fully embrace and savor the little moments of tenderness that, in our younger, more hurried years, we had often overlooked. We discovered how precious these moments truly were, those fleeting instances that we now recognize as more profound and meaningful than any fast-paced, passion-driven encounters we once rushed through. A long, slow kiss, once something we might have taken for granted, now held a depth we couldn't have appreciated before. Each kiss became a tender exploration, an expression of love that far surpassed the physical act. We no longer needed the quick fix of excitement to feel connected. Holding hands as we lay in bed, tangled in the softness of our sheets, felt like the most intimate thing we could share. It was as though those simple gestures, once overlooked in the chaos of life, had become the very heartbeat of our relationship. The warmth of each other's skin, and the way our bodies fit together in the quiet of the night, brought a profound sense of peace. There was something indescribable about being in that moment with someone who truly understands you, whose touch feels like home. It wasn't about grand gestures or flashy acts. It was about the gentle, comforting presence we provided each other. There was a deep, beautiful freedom that came with this new understanding. We no longer felt the pressure to perform or meet certain expectations that once clouded our intimate moments. There was no longer any fear of failure if things didn't unfold in a specific way. The weight of expectations had been lifted, and in its place was a feeling of liberation, an understanding that true connection isn't measured by the ticking of a clock or a set of predetermined rules. One of the most profound and beautiful realizations we had during this time was that pleasure, love, and connection didn't need to be tied to a traditional or physical expectation, like an erection, for example. The beauty of intimacy now lay in the soft caress of hands, the shared quiet moments, the deep, meaningful glances. We found joy in just being present, in learning to touch, to connect, and to open our hearts to new ways of experiencing intimacy. We began to explore new ways of connecting, discovering a richness that we had never before imagined, one that transcended the limitations of physicality, embracing the fullness of the emotional and spiritual bond we shared. In those quiet, unhurried moments, we realized that love and intimacy are not defined by society's standards or by age. They are defined by the strength of the bond, the depth of the care, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability. And in this newfound wisdom, we found a deeper, more lasting joy than we ever thought possible. We began to spend more time in foreplay, savoring every moment and truly appreciating each other's presence. It wasn't about rushing toward the end goal. It was about truly experiencing and cherishing each touch, each kiss, and each whisper. We took the time to explore each other's bodies in ways we hadn't before, finding new ways to connect that weren't necessarily about intercourse. It felt like a beautiful discovery, one where pleasure wasn't just physical but deeply emotional as well. Every moment we spent together in this new intimacy didn't just ignite passion. It built a sense of trust and vulnerability that I hadn't realized we had been missing. What had once been a source of tension, anxiety, and even frustration, those moments of uncertainty about our connection, suddenly turned into something so much more meaningful. Instead of focusing on what we couldn't do, we focused on the little things that made us feel loved and valued. The simple act of being present with one another, without the pressure to perform, became an incredible opportunity for growth. It wasn't about perfection. It was about connection. It wasn't just about satisfying a need. It was about nurturing our emotional bond, strengthening it in ways we hadn't anticipated. There were no expectations to live up to, just an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the shared moments of closeness. As the weeks went by, I began to notice a subtle yet powerful transformation in my husband. His once distant demeanor softened. Slowly but surely, the man who had once felt defeated by insecurities found his confidence again. He wasn't the same person he had been in his youth, and that was more than okay. It was beautiful. He no longer needed to measure his worth by what he could physically do. It was as though he had learned to embrace his body. Not just the changes it had gone through, but the imperfections that made him uniquely him. There was a peaceful acceptance that I had never seen before, and it touched me in ways I can't fully describe. Watching him embrace himself, flaws and all, brought me closer to him in ways I never imagined. In our intimacy, we both found a new kind of freedom, one not defined by age, appearance, or performance, but by acceptance, love, and connection. It was the most profound shift in our relationship, one that I will always treasure. With that acceptance, something truly beautiful unfolded between us, a profound sense of peace. It was not just peace with himself, but peace with the relentless passage of time, peace with the undeniable changes that life brings, and most importantly, peace with the new chapter we were about to enter together as a couple. I could feel the weight of his past anxieties and self-doubt lift, replaced by a gentle calm that wrapped around us both, offering comfort and a sense of security. It felt as though we were no longer struggling against the flow of time, but rather embracing it, allowing it to carry us forward into something even more precious. And this peace, it spilled over into every part of our lives, including our intimacy. Our sex life, which many might assume would diminish with time, only deepened and flourished in ways I hadn't expected. There was a raw beauty in shedding the heavy cloak of unrealistic expectations that society often places on physical intimacy. Instead of focusing on superficial standards, we gave ourselves the freedom to truly feel one another and to connect without the burden of proving anything. It was as if, for the first time, we allowed ourselves to simply be, to experience each other in a way that was not rushed or laden with pressure, but full of tenderness and honesty. By letting go of those external expectations, we rediscovered what truly mattered: our connection, our love, and the immense joy that comes from simply being in each other's presence. It was not just about the physical act of sex, but about how we communicated with each other, not through words, but through touch, through the way we gazed into one another's eyes, through the warmth we shared in every embrace. These moments, the softest ones, held a deeper significance than I ever imagined possible. It was in these moments that I realized how deeply sex, at its core, is about feeling, about making your partner feel valued, seen, and cherished in ways words cannot express. It's about sharing that unspoken joy of being fully present with one another, without distractions, without reservations. There is something so profoundly intimate about letting go of every preconceived notion and simply being vulnerable, allowing ourselves to explore one another with no agenda except to deepen the bond that already exists between us. It's in those quiet, tender moments that the true beauty of our connection reveals itself. And as I reflect on all we've shared, I can honestly say that our intimacy has never been more fulfilling. It's not just the physical closeness, it's the emotional closeness, the way we've learned to love and support each other more deeply, that makes every moment together feel like a precious gift. One of the most profound lessons we learn from this incredible journey of life together is that intimacy is not confined to the bedroom, as so many may mistakenly believe. Intimacy is found in the moments that seem insignificant to the outside world, but are everything to us. The quiet mornings, the shared glances, the times when we hold each other in silence, and even in the small, everyday gestures that make up the fabric of our shared lives. It's in how we listen to each other, truly hear one another's hopes and fears, and in the warmth we offer when the weight of the world feels too heavy for one of us to carry alone. It's in those moments when life is particularly hard, when we're tired, or when the future feels uncertain, but we still find a way to laugh, hold hands, and remind each other that we are not alone. Those are the moments of intimacy, the true bond that connects us, far more than any physical act could ever represent. As we have grown older, we've come to realize, sometimes painfully, that love and intimacy aren't just about physical attraction or performance. The shallow notions of what we once thought defined a relationship fade away, and what remains is something far more profound, far more lasting. It's the deep emotional connection that strengthens over time, weathering the inevitable storms of life, and growing deeper with every shared smile and tear. It's the trust we've built through years of laughter, sorrow, triumphs, and setbacks. Intimacy is found in knowing the other person so well that their heart feels like home, and even when life throws challenges our way, whether it's the weariness of aging or the heartbreak of unexpected struggles, we stand beside each other, not because we have to, but because we choose to. Through it all, we find that true intimacy isn't dependent on physical appearance or what our bodies can or cannot do. It's rooted in the deep knowing that you are loved for who you are, in your soul, in your essence, in the quiet moments that make up a lifetime. There is nothing more beautiful, more fulfilling, than realizing that you've built something so solid with someone else. Something that transcends time and physicality, something that only deepens as you age. Intimacy, as I've come to understand it, is about standing together through all of life's changes, always loving, always present, no matter what. For anyone navigating the profound changes that come with aging, I want to offer a message that's filled with warmth, encouragement, and hope. Growing older doesn't mark the end of intimacy. It marks the beautiful beginning of a new chapter in your life, one that holds a kind of connection that is far deeper, more enriching, and profoundly meaningful than anything you might have experienced when you were younger. Yes, your body may change over time, but that doesn't mean that love and intimacy have to fade. They can evolve into something even more incredible, something that holds the power to transcend physicality. It's a connection that becomes more about the emotional bonds, the way you nurture one another's hearts and souls, and how you find new ways to create moments of tenderness that speak louder than words. I believe, from the depth of my heart, that embracing the changes that come with aging is one of the most freeing and empowering acts we can do. It's not about resisting the passage of time or longing for a past that's no longer within reach. It's about accepting and loving your body just as it is. Every mark, every line, every new curve that forms over time. Those changes aren't a loss. They are a testament to the beautiful, full life you've lived, and they hold a deeper meaning. Love is so much more than the physical act. It's the moments that define your connection. The shared smiles, the laughter, the way you still find joy in one another's company. Love isn't just about the things you do for one another. It's about how you show up in each other's lives, day after day, even as your bodies may become frailer or less predictable. The most beautiful thing about love is how it evolves, how it adapts, and how it flourishes through all the changes life throws at you. You grow together, not only in age but in emotional depth, and the intimacy you share deepens beyond what you could have ever imagined when you were younger. What truly matters in the end? The only thing that truly matters is the bond you've nurtured over the years, the love that continues to surround you, the quiet understanding between the two of you, and those precious, tender moments that reveal how deeply connected you truly are. It's about knowing each other's hearts so well that no words are needed to express how you feel. That is the true essence of intimacy, the soul-deep connection that doesn't rely on fleeting appearances or the physical, but on something so much stronger. And I firmly believe this. It only gets better with time. So embrace the beauty of growing older. The best is yet to come. It's a deeply ingrained truth, one that most men face from the very beginning of their lives, that their worth and masculinity are often measured by physical traits, stamina, and perhaps most unfairly, sexual performance. Society relentlessly bombards men with the idea that their value is intrinsically tied to their strength, virility, and the ever-elusive idea of dominance. From an early age, they are taught that a man's success and self-worth are determined by the size of his penis, the firmness of his erection, and his ability to perform sexually. It's a suffocating narrative that places an immense burden on them, demanding that they constantly maintain an image of masculinity that is not only unrealistic but downright unfair. This societal expectation leaves little room for vulnerability or the natural changes that come with aging. As the years inevitably pass, many men are left grappling with feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and even deep shame when their bodies begin to change. It's heartbreaking, truly, to see so many men struggling with this internal conflict, feeling as though they are no longer worthy of love or affection simply because their physicality no longer aligns with society's arbitrary standards. But here's the truth I wish every man could internalize. Your worth is not defined by the size of your body or the ability of your physical form. It is not tied to fleeting attributes like firmness or performance. Your real worth is far more profound than that. It lies in the way you love, the way you care for others, and how deeply you can connect with those who matter most to you. True worth is found in your empathy, your kindness, and the depth of your character. It shines through in your capacity for tenderness, respect, and compassion, especially in the way you treat your partner. As someone who has lived a long and fulfilling life alongside the love of my life, I can say with unwavering confidence that intimacy in older age can be so much more than it was in our younger years. There is a richness, a beauty, in growing older together, something far more meaningful than the physical thrills of youth. It is in these later years that we discover the true meaning of intimacy, not through the pressures of physical performance, but through understanding, patience, and a connection that is far deeper than what we could have imagined when we were younger. When my husband and I were young, like most couples, we placed far too much emphasis on the physical side of our relationship. Intimacy was driven by passion, urgency, and the belief that every moment had to be filled with excitement and physical fulfillment. There was a certain thrill in those early years, an energy that made our intimate moments feel vibrant and full of life. But in retrospect, I now see that intimacy is so much more than just the physical aspect. It is about the emotional depth that sustains a relationship and the quiet strength of knowing that you are with someone who understands you on a profound level. As the years passed, we both experienced the inevitable changes that come with aging. The first time my husband noticed a decline in his erections, there was an unspoken tension that hung in the air between us. He was embarrassed and confused, and though he never said it, I could sense his feelings of inadequacy. He felt less like a man, as though something fundamental about him had shifted. It was painful for me to witness because I could see the weight of these emotions on him, even though he tried to mask them. He would avoid the topic altogether, brushing it off with a joke or pretending it didn't bother him, but I could tell. The emotional distance that began to grow between us was palpable. It wasn't just the physical changes that concerned him. It was the fear that his body no longer conformed to the standards he thought I expected, and that it might affect the way I saw him. I will never forget the evening when we finally spoke about it. We had just finished dinner, and there was this heavy silence between us, one that seemed almost too loud to ignore. I took his hand gently in mine, sat down beside him, and told him that I understood what he was going through. I wanted him to know from the bottom of my heart that his physical changes did not, in any way, diminish the love I felt for him. I assured him that I didn't care about the strength of his erection or his ability to perform as he once did. What mattered to me, and what I had always treasured, was the deep connection we shared, the love, the trust, and the profound bond that had only deepened over the years. At that moment, everything shifted. We began to see our relationship in an entirely new light. We realized that intimacy was never truly about performance or fulfilling an idealized version of what sex should be. It had never been about the size of his body or the stamina he could muster. True intimacy, the kind that transcends time and physical changes, comes from the emotional connection we've built together over decades. It's in the way we communicate, the way we touch, and the comfort in knowing each other so intimately that words are often unnecessary. It's the quiet moments of holding each other and simply being with one another, without any expectation or pressure to meet some external standard. I believe, from the depth of my heart, that embracing the changes that come with aging is one of the most freeing and empowering acts we can do. It's not about resisting the passage of time or longing for a past that's no longer within reach. It's about accepting and loving your body just as it is. Every mark, every line, every new curve that forms over time. Those changes aren't a loss. They are a testament to the beautiful, full life you've lived, and they hold a deeper meaning. Love is so much more than the physical act. It's the moments that define your connection. The shared smiles, the laughter, the way you still find joy in one another's company. Love isn't just about the things you do for one another. It's about how you show up in each other's lives, day after day, even as your bodies may become frailer or less predictable. The most beautiful thing about love is how it evolves, how it adapts, and how it flourishes through all the changes life throws at you. You grow together, not only in age but in emotional depth, and the intimacy you share deepens beyond what you could have ever imagined when you were younger. What truly matters in the end? The only thing that truly matters is the bond you've nurtured over the years, the love that continues to surround you, the quiet understanding between the two of you, and those precious, tender moments that reveal how deeply connected you truly are. It's about knowing each other's hearts so well that no words are needed to express how you feel. That is the true essence of intimacy, the soul-deep connection that doesn't rely on fleeting appearances or the physical, but on something so much stronger. And I firmly believe this. It only gets better with time. So embrace the beauty of growing older. The best is yet to come. It's a deeply ingrained truth, one that most men face from the very beginning of their lives, that their worth and masculinity are often measured by physical traits, stamina, and perhaps most unfairly, sexual performance. Society relentlessly bombards men with the idea that their value is intrinsically tied to their strength, virility, and the ever-elusive idea of dominance. From an early age, they are taught that a man's success and self-worth are determined by the size of his penis, the firmness of his erection, and his ability to perform sexually. It's a suffocating narrative that places an immense burden on them, demanding that they constantly maintain an image of masculinity that is not only unrealistic but downright unfair. This societal expectation leaves little room for vulnerability or the natural changes that come with aging. As the years inevitably pass, many men are left grappling with feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and even deep shame when their bodies begin to change. It's heartbreaking, truly, to see so many men struggling with this internal conflict, feeling as though they are no longer worthy of love or affection simply because their physicality no longer aligns with society's arbitrary standards. But here's the truth I wish every man could internalize. Your worth is not defined by the size of your body or the ability of your physical form. It is not tied to fleeting attributes like firmness or performance. Your real worth is far more profound than that. It lies in the way you love, the way you care for others, and how deeply you can connect with those who matter most to you. True worth is found in your empathy, your kindness, and the depth of your character. It shines through in your capacity for tenderness, respect, and compassion, especially in the way you treat your partner. As someone who has lived a long and fulfilling life alongside the love of my life, I can say with unwavering confidence that intimacy in older age can be so much more than it was in our younger years. There is a richness, a beauty, in growing older together, something far more meaningful than the physical thrills of youth. It is in these later years that we discover the true meaning of intimacy, not through the pressures of physical performance, but through understanding, patience, and a connection that is far deeper than what we could have imagined when we were younger. When my husband and I were young, like most couples, we placed far too much emphasis on the physical side of our relationship. Intimacy was driven by passion, urgency, and the belief that every moment had to be filled with excitement and physical fulfillment. There was a certain thrill in those early years, an energy that made our intimate moments feel vibrant and full of life. But in retrospect, I now see that intimacy is so much more than just the physical aspect. It is about the emotional depth that sustains a relationship and the quiet strength of knowing that you are with someone who understands you on a profound level. As the years passed, we both experienced the inevitable changes that come with aging. The first time my husband noticed a decline in his erections, there was an unspoken tension that hung in the air between us. He was embarrassed and confused, and though he never said it, I could sense his feelings of inadequacy. He felt less like a man, as though something fundamental about him had shifted. It was painful for me to witness because I could see the weight of these emotions on him, even though he tried to mask them. He would avoid the topic altogether, brushing it off with a joke or pretending it didn't bother him, but I could tell. The emotional distance that began to grow between us was palpable. It wasn't just the physical changes that concerned him. It was the fear that his body no longer conformed to the standards he thought I expected, and that it might affect the way I saw him. I will never forget the evening when we finally spoke about it. We had just finished dinner, and there was this heavy silence between us, one that seemed almost too loud to ignore. I took his hand gently in mine, sat down beside him, and told him that I understood what he was going through. I wanted him to know from the bottom of my heart that his physical changes did not, in any way, diminish the love I felt for him. I assured him that I didn't care about the strength of his erection or his ability to perform as he once did. What mattered to me, and what I had always treasured, was the deep connection we shared, the love, the trust, and the profound bond that had only deepened over the years. At that moment, everything shifted. We began to see our relationship in an entirely new light. We realized that intimacy was never truly about performance or fulfilling an idealized version of what sex should be. It had never been about the size of his body or the stamina he could muster. True intimacy, the kind that transcends time and physical changes, comes from the emotional connection we've built together over decades. It's in the way we communicate, the way we touch, and the comfort in knowing each other so intimately that words are often unnecessary. It's the quiet moments of holding each other and simply being with one another, without any expectation or pressure to meet some external standard. My husband recently opened up to me in a way that both broke my heart and made it swell with love all at once. He shared how deeply challenging it had been for him to come to terms with the changes happening to his body. For years, he had prided himself on his strength, his vitality, and his ability to perform in ways that, to him, were synonymous with masculinity. But as the years passed, he struggled with feelings of inadequacy, shame, and self-doubt. He told me that at one point, he feared that the physical changes, specifically the decline in his sexual performance, might make me see him differently or love him any less. To him, these changes represented a loss of a vital part of who he was, a part that he felt defined him as a man. But then, something shifted in him. As he opened up about his fears, he shared with me a revelation that took my breath away and filled me with pride. He told me he had come to understand something so profound and life-changing. His worth was never tied to these superficial things. Over the years, through the strength of our bond, he had come to realize that true masculinity is not about meeting some impossible societal standard. It's about how we treat the people we love, how we show up for them, how deeply we connect with them emotionally and spiritually. And in that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love for the man he had become, not just for his body but for his heart, mind, and soul. I, in turn, poured my heart out to him. I told him how, while the changes had taken me by surprise at first, they had never once made me love him less. They had only deepened my love and admiration for him. It wasn't the physical aspects that drew me to him. It was the emotional, the intellectual, and the spiritual connection that we shared. Over the years, our bond had become far more than just the physical intimacy we once knew. It had evolved into something far more profound, something that transcended mere appearances. We had learned to embrace these changes together, each of us meeting the other with understanding, patience, and love. And in doing so, we became stronger, more connected, more resilient. I told him how much I appreciated his vulnerability, and how much it meant to me that he trusted me enough to open up about his deepest fears. I realized that this kind of open, honest communication was the true foundation of our relationship. We had both learned that communication, real, raw, honest communication, was not just important in the bedroom, but in every aspect of our lives together. We no longer assumed that the other person knew what we needed or felt. Instead, we made an effort, an intentional, conscious effort, to truly listen to each other, to speak with compassion, and to be present in every moment. This willingness to be open with one another reignited a spark in our relationship, one that I honestly hadn't expected. It wasn't just about intimacy in the physical sense. It was about something much more powerful, much more lasting. We had rediscovered our connection in a way that was more vibrant and more alive than ever before. And I came to realize, as I looked back on all we had been through, that the challenges we had faced together, the struggles, the fears, the pain, had been an unexpected gift. They had forced us to confront parts of ourselves that we might have otherwise kept hidden, and in doing so, they brought us closer, strengthening our bond in ways I never imagined possible. True intimacy, I realized, doesn't fade with time. In fact, it grows. It deepens. It becomes more meaningful as the years go on. The superficial aspects, our bodies, our appearance, may change, but the love we share, the emotional and spiritual connection that binds us together, only grows stronger. And as we continue to walk through life side by side, I can honestly say that the love we share is fiercer, more beautiful, more passionate than it ever was. And I am infinitely grateful for it. As time went on, we found ourselves facing the inevitable changes that aging brings. At first, they were subtle, almost imperceptible, but before long, the reality of those changes became undeniable. I watched my husband wrestle with the frustration of no longer being able to perform in the same way he had when we were younger. His body, once strong and reliable, began to show signs of aging. And with those changes, I could see how his confidence began to erode. This man, who had always been so proud, so self-assured, was now feeling vulnerable, unsure of himself. He had always been the rock of our family, the one we all relied on, but now I saw him faltering, feeling like he was losing a part of his identity that had been so tightly intertwined with his sense of masculinity. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. The weight of societal expectations, the unspoken belief that men must remain virile and sexually capable into their old age, became a silent burden that he carried with him, even though he didn't speak about it. I could sense it in the subtle changes in his behavior, the irritability, the quiet moments when he'd pull away, the uncomfortable silences that would linger when the topic of intimacy arose. I could see how deeply this fear affected him, that somehow he was losing his worth as a man, that these changes meant he was no longer enough. One evening, after we had shared a quiet dinner, I knew it was time to talk. I reached for his hand, and as we sat there together, I gently told him that I had noticed how he had been feeling, and that I wanted him to know that it was okay to talk about it. At first, he brushed it off with a weak smile, but I pressed on. I reminded him that we had always faced everything together, and this was no different. Slowly, he began to open up. He admitted that the changes in his body were hard for him to accept, that they made him feel like he was losing a part of himself that had always defined him. And in that moment, something shifted. I reassured him, as gently as I could, that his worth had never been tied to his physical abilities. What mattered to me wasn't his body or his performance, but the man he had always been, the kindness he showed, the love he gave, and the sacrifices he had made for me and our family. The changes in his body didn't change how I saw him, and they certainly didn't change how much I loved him. I loved him for the depth of his heart, for the beautiful person he was, inside and out. That conversation marked a turning point for us. From that moment on, we began to approach intimacy and life itself in a completely new way. We learned that intimacy wasn't just about physical connection. It was about the emotional bond we had nurtured over the years, the trust, the understanding, and the unwavering love that had withstood every challenge life had thrown our way. We began to focus more on nurturing that emotional and spiritual connection, the things that truly mattered. And in doing so, we discovered a new kind of closeness, a more profound form of intimacy that went far beyond the physical. As my husband worked through his insecurities and began to accept the changes in his body, something beautiful happened. He started to take better care of himself, not out of a need to look younger or meet some societal expectation, but because he wanted to feel good in his skin again. He focused on his overall well-being, eating better, staying active in ways that were more suited to his body now, and practicing mindfulness to reduce stress. And in the most unexpected turn of events, as he let go of the pressure to meet these impossible standards of masculinity, something amazing happened. Our sex life improved. The stress and anxiety that had been weighing him down, both in our relationship and in his personal life, began to lift. And with that, the tension between us began to dissipate. We found a new rhythm, a new understanding of each other's needs. And in this newfound peace, our love and intimacy flourished in ways we hadn't expected. It was a beautiful, profound transformation, one that I am so deeply thankful for every single day. As time passed, my husband became more relaxed, more present, and more attuned to the beauty of our intimate moments. It was as if, by finally accepting his body as it was, he had unlocked a new level of freedom that allowed him to experience pleasure in a more authentic and fulfilling way. Gone were the days of constant self-doubt, where every movement was measured against an impossible standard. It was truly transformative to witness this shift, not just in his body, but in his spirit. The pressure he had once carried, anxiety over performance, comparisons to younger versions of himself, slowly melted away. But this change, like all meaningful growth, did not happen overnight. There were still days when frustration or doubt crept in. There were moments when his insecurities resurfaced, reminding him of the world's often unrealistic expectations. I could see the weight of societal pressure would creep back in, making him question his worth and our connection. Yet, as time passed, those moments became fewer, and the space between them grew. It was as if he was learning not just to accept his physical self, but to embrace the idea that he was worthy of love and affection in every way, just as he was. We continued working on ourselves, both individually and together. The aging process, with all its complexities, demanded patience and understanding, and through it, we learned the power of honest communication. While we had always shared our thoughts, we soon found ourselves delving deeper, exploring not just surface-level issues, but our raw emotions, our fears, and our vulnerabilities. These conversations became the heart of our connection, and I could see how much it meant to him to feel seen and understood. For the first time, I understood how much it meant for him to know that I didn't judge him for the changes he was experiencing. In turn, I shared how his honesty made me love him even more, and how his vulnerability was not a weakness but a strength that deepened my feelings for him. It was through these moments of sharing that we realized intimacy wasn't just confined to the bedroom. It was the little moments throughout the day, the way we looked at each other, the way we listened, the way we showed up for one another. Our bond was not measured by what happened between the sheets, but by how we chose to show love every day, through both the big moments and the smallest gestures. And in a surprising twist, as our emotional intimacy blossomed, so too did our physical connection. It wasn't that sex itself became more frequent or elaborate. Rather, it became more profound. It felt like a beautiful, uninterrupted connection, where there was no rush, no need to perform, only the comforting presence of the one you love. We didn't need to meet any societal expectations. Instead, we discovered that sex was no longer about achieving perfection, but about sharing a quiet, deep connection. This realization made me appreciate how intimacy evolves. The pleasure we shared, though less frantic than in our youth, was far richer because it was rooted in understanding, acceptance, and mutual respect. We no longer felt the pressure to be perfect lovers. We simply allowed ourselves to be perfect for each other. Reflecting on our journey, I see that the most significant changes weren't just physical. Sure, the wrinkles, the gray hairs, and the aches were present, but what transformed our relationship was the emotional intimacy we nurtured. It taught me that true intimacy is not about maintaining a youthful appearance or performance, but about being there for each other, embracing change, and sharing the vulnerabilities that come with aging. Our love grew stronger because we learned to face these challenges together. And now, looking back, I realize that I am most grateful for the emotional intimacy that has deepened our bond, as this connection has become the foundation of everything else we share. Our relationship entered a new chapter, one we hadn't fully anticipated but had learned to embrace with open hearts. In this transition, we found humor to be an unexpectedly powerful tool. We started laughing more together, learning to find joy even in the awkward, imperfect moments that came with aging. There were nights when things didn't go as planned, when our bodies just couldn't respond the way they once had. Instead of letting that cause frustration, we found humor. At first, it was nervous laughter, uncomfortable, filled with uncertainty. But over time, that nervous laughter transformed into something freeing, something joyous that melted away the tension. It became our way of saying, "It's okay. We're still here, still together, still in this." We realized that perfection was never the goal. The connection was. It wasn't about meeting expectations or checking off a list. It was about being present with each other, savoring the moment, and making space for imperfections. Those imperfections, we learned, were beautiful in their way. Life itself is imperfect, and there's something profoundly freeing about letting go of the pressure to make everything just right. This realization brought a lightness to our lives that we hadn't expected. When we stopped worrying about getting it all right, we were able to enjoy each other's company in a more relaxed, loving way. Our relationship blossomed in ways we hadn't anticipated, evolving into something deeper, more meaningful, and more connected than ever before. As we learned to embrace this more relaxed attitude toward intimacy, something remarkable happened. We began to experience a deeper connection, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. We learned to appreciate the small, quiet moments, the gentle touch, the lingering gaze, the shared laughter. These moments were just as valuable, if not more so, than anything we had once considered important in our youth. What we came to understand is that true pleasure doesn't come from the act itself, but from the love and understanding that fills the space between us. That was the gift of aging together, the deepening of our emotional intimacy, which then gave rise to a more profound physical connection. As the years passed, the physical aspect of our intimacy became less of a focal point, and the emotional and spiritual bond we shared took center stage. It was this bond that allowed us to move through the changes in our bodies and our lives with grace and love. Together, we discovered that intimacy is not something that fades with age, but something that matures and deepens, just like the love that sustains it. This process wasn't without its struggles, of course. There were still moments when frustration would resurface, when society's expectations seemed to weigh heavily on my husband's shoulders. We live in a world that often measures a man's worth by his physical abilities, his strength, his performance, and his virility. These deeply ingrained messages from society would occasionally rear their heads, causing moments of doubt. But each time it happened, it became an opportunity for us to communicate more openly, to reassure each other, and to reaffirm that our love wasn't defined by physical performance. It was defined by the deep, unbreakable connection we had built over the years. This, I realize, is the essence of true intimacy. It's about being there for each other, through every high, every low, and every challenge. And for that, I am eternally grateful. I remember one particularly heart-wrenching day when my husband, the man I had shared so much of my life with, opened up to me in a way that I had never imagined. He admitted, with a deep sense of vulnerability, that he felt like he was failing, not as a husband, not as a partner, but as a man. The issue wasn't with anything I had ever expressed to him, but rather the relentless pressure he placed on himself, a pressure driven by societal expectations of masculinity. His body, once a symbol of strength and vitality, no longer felt like it could live up to those standards. And in his mind, that meant he was somehow letting me down. He believed that because his body wasn't what it used to be, he was less of a man. That moment broke me. It shattered my heart to see the man I loved so deeply burdened with self-doubt, believing that his worth was defined by physical appearance and performance. What hurt even more was realizing just how deeply society's narrow view of masculinity had crept into his soul. But at the same time, it was one of the most intimate moments we had shared, a moment of incredible vulnerability that brought us closer than ever before. In that raw and honest conversation, we began to peel back the layers of what masculinity truly meant, not just to him, but to both of us. We talked for hours, deep into the night, about how society often reduces a man's worth to the size of his muscles or his ability to perform in the bedroom. But we agreed that this shallow narrative couldn't be further from the truth. Masculinity, true masculinity, is about so much more than physical traits. It's about the love and care a man shows to those around him, his ability to provide emotional support, his kindness and compassion, and the way he treats others with dignity and respect. Those qualities, we realized, are what make a man truly strong. And that conversation, painful as it was, became a turning point for us. It allowed us to redefine what intimacy truly meant in our relationship. As we began to rethink what intimacy looked like, we realized it wasn't just about the physical connection. It was about emotional intimacy. We started focusing on nurturing our emotional connection every single day, even outside of the bedroom. It became a conscious decision to show affection in ways that didn't rely on physical closeness, but instead on moments of tenderness and care. We began holding hands more often, a simple act but one that carried so much meaning. We started leaving little love notes for each other, exchanging words of encouragement and appreciation. And we set aside time, no matter how busy our lives became, to sit together, drink tea, and just talk about anything and everything. These small acts, which may seem insignificant to some, became the pillars of our relationship. They deepened our bond, and somehow, when the time for physical intimacy did come, it felt even more special and more meaningful. What took us both by surprise was how our sex life began to evolve. The more we embraced emotional intimacy, the more our connection in every area of life, especially in the bedroom, flourished. The pressure to perform, which had once been a constant source of anxiety for both of us, began to fade. As my husband let go of his fears and the anxiety about his body's response, he started to relax. His confidence grew, not because his body was the same as it had been years ago, but because he knew, deep in his heart, that he was enough just as he was. There was something freeing in letting go of expectations, and it opened the door to a deeper kind of pleasure, one that was built on trust, love, and emotional connection, not physical perfection. It was as if the more we accepted the changes of aging with love and understanding, the more profound and fulfilling our intimacy became. In this journey, we also had to learn to accept the changes in our bodies with grace. Aging had once felt like an enemy to us, something to fear and resist. But over time, we came to see aging not as a battle, but as a natural part of life. My husband began to take better care of himself, not out of a desire to regain youth, but because he wanted to honor his body and nurture it, to feel good in it as it was. He focused on eating healthier, staying active in ways that suited his body's needs, and practicing relaxation techniques to manage stress. These changes didn't just affect his physical well-being, they had a ripple effect on his emotional and mental health. And as his health improved, so did our relationship. We were no longer weighed down by the constant stress and pressure of trying to maintain some idealized version of ourselves. Instead, we embraced who we were, with all the imperfections and changes that come with age. I won't pretend it was easy. These changes didn't happen overnight. They took time, patience, and a lot of understanding from both of us. There were moments of doubt, times when insecurities resurfaced, and we both struggled with the fear that we were losing something. But through it all, we stayed committed to each other, and most importantly, we stayed committed to the process of growing together. We kept talking, always opening up about how we were feeling, what we needed, and how we could support each other. We learned to give ourselves grace. We learned that this was not a destination, but a journey, a beautiful, messy, sometimes challenging, but always rewarding journey. Looking back now, I can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. There is a certain beauty in mature love, a love that has weathered storms, endured hardships, and come out stronger on the other side. The passion of youth has its place, but there is something far more fulfilling about the steady, enduring love that comes with age. It is a love built on trust, mutual respect, and the deep knowledge that what you have created together is far more precious than fleeting physical pleasures. For any man or couple going through similar changes, I urge you to embrace this journey with open arms. Don't be afraid to talk about what you're experiencing, to share your fears and insecurities. Aging is a natural part of life, and if you approach it with the right mindset, each stage can be just as fulfilling and meaningful as the one before. The size of your body, the firmness of your muscles, and the shape of your physical self, these are just details. True masculinity, true connection, and true love are found in how you treat each other, in the kindness you show, in the love you give, and in the support you provide. As we continue to age together, my husband and I are still learning, still loving, and still finding new ways to connect. That, to me, is the greatest gift of all. Aging hasn't taken anything away from our relationship. On the contrary, it has given us more than we ever imagined. It has taught us that love, in all its forms, only grows stronger with time, and that the deepest intimacy comes not from physical perfection but from the heart. In that moment, something deeply shifted within us. It became painfully clear that the real issue wasn't the physical changes we were both witnessing, though those changes were undeniable, but the emotional toll they were taking on him and us as a couple. We had spent years building a relationship based on so much more than fleeting physical attraction or the sexual connection that, in our younger years, seemed to define so much intimacy. But now, these changes were forcing us to confront something we had always known deep down. Intimacy, true intimacy, is about so much more than just the act of sex. It's about emotional closeness, vulnerability, and being seen and loved for who you truly are, not merely for what your body can still do. As we sat there, talking through the emotions that were coming to the surface, it became clear that this challenge, the aging process, the shifting of our bodies, wasn't just a trial. It was an opportunity to grow even closer than we had ever imagined. Instead of focusing on what was being lost, we saw a chance to redefine what intimacy truly meant for us. It was a chance to explore new ways of connecting, ways that weren't tied to physical performance but to something far more profound, our emotional bond. Slowly, we began to find joy in the small, tender moments, the ones that were once so simple, but now held a new depth. A touch of the hand, a lingering hug, a warm smile across the room. The act of holding hands wasn't just a gesture anymore. It became a reminder of our connection, our shared history, and our unwavering love. These moments, though small and perhaps ordinary to others, became our sanctuary. They turned into acts of love that reinforced a bond we had built over decades of shared experiences, laughter, and yes, even tears. They were little gestures, but they carried with them a weight of meaning that nothing else could match. It wasn't about the rush of climax anymore. It was about the quiet presence, the connection of two souls navigating life together. It was about showing up for each other in ways that didn't require grand gestures, but a deep emotional presence, a vulnerability that spoke louder than any physical act ever could. As we leaned into this new phase of our relationship, I saw my husband begin to change, not just physically but emotionally. He began to let go of the societal expectations that had weighed him down for so long, the unrealistic pressures that so many men, especially, carry their whole lives. He started to realize that his value, his worth, wasn't tied to his ability to perform sexually, but to how he showed up in our relationship, how he contributed to our family and the love he gave so freely. The pressure of needing to be something he wasn't, to fit into some narrow definition of masculinity, began to dissolve. He started to understand that real masculinity, true strength, isn't about physical prowess or virility. It's about compassion, emotional availability, and the courage to love deeply and openly, without fear. This realization, I can't emphasize enough, was nothing short of liberating for him. I watched as he began to take better care of himself, not because he was trying to reverse the aging process, not because he was obsessed with looking younger, but because he wanted to feel good in the body he had. He started focusing on his overall well-being. He ate better, he exercised, and he began to take time to relax and manage stress. These changes didn't just improve his physical health, they transformed his emotional health as well. He grew more confident, more at peace with the man he had become, and more open to the emotional intimacy we were rediscovering together. There was a lightness to him, a newfound joy that radiated from within. And I, too, found myself evolving. Through this journey, I realized that love, true love, isn't something static. It's not something that you have at one point in your life and then lose. Love is something that grows and deepens over time, just as we do. The love we shared in our youth was full of passion, excitement, and energy. It was a love that burned bright and fast. But the love we were discovering now, in the later chapters of our lives, was different. It wasn't about the intensity of youth. It was about the depth of understanding, the strength of commitment, and the quiet joy of knowing that we had weathered so much together. This love had been tested by time and challenges, and yet it had only grown stronger. Experience, I've come to understand, is one of love's greatest teachers. And the love my husband and I share now, this quieter, deeper, more grounded love, has a beauty all its own. It's the love that comes from knowing someone completely, from seeing them at their very best and their very worst, and choosing to stay, to love them through it all. There's something so profoundly beautiful in the quiet moments, in the way we now communicate without words, in the way we simply show up for one another. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine care, respect, and affection. As my husband's relationship with his own body changed, so too did our relationship with one another. The pressure to meet the impossible standards set by society around sex, around performance, faded away. What remained, what was left after all of that, was something infinitely more valuable. An emotional intimacy that had always been there, but that we had never fully embraced. We found that the more we focused on being emotionally present for each other, the more fulfilling our physical connection became, even if it didn't look the same as it had before. We also learned to laugh. We learned to laugh about the moments that didn't go as planned. There were times, yes, when things didn't work out physically, when what we had hoped for didn't materialize. But instead of letting those moments make us feel embarrassed or frustrated, we just laughed. We laughed because we realized that life is messy, imperfect, and full of surprises, and that's okay. Laughter, for us, became a balm, a way to ease the tension and remind ourselves that we didn't need everything to be perfect for it to be meaningful. Those moments of humor and shared vulnerability brought us closer than ever before. And yes, the journey was not without its setbacks. There were days when my husband still struggled with old insecurities, when the fear of not being enough would creep in. But we faced those moments together, hand in hand, and we reminded each other of the strength of our bond, the depth of our love, and how far we had come. Each time we navigated one of those difficult moments, we came out the other side stronger, more connected, more attuned to each other's needs. Looking back now, I can say with certainty that this journey of aging, of confronting the changes in our bodies and redefining intimacy, was one of the most profound experiences of our lives. It taught us that love isn't about physical perfection or meeting some arbitrary societal standard. It's about showing up for each other, being there through the highs and lows, the changes and challenges, and knowing that your partner loves you, not despite those changes, but because of them. So, to anyone who finds themselves on this same journey, my advice is simple. Embrace it. Don't shy away from talking about the changes you're going through. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable with each other. Let go of the expectations that society places on us. Aging is a natural part of life, and with it comes a beautiful opportunity. A chance to deepen your connection, to rediscover intimacy in ways you never imagined, and to grow together in ways that might surprise you. In the end, what we discovered is that true intimacy, the kind that lasts, the kind that sustains you through the years, isn't about physicality. It's about emotional closeness, trust, and the love you've built over a lifetime. And to me, that is the most beautiful part of aging together. As my husband and I continue this journey, we have found ourselves walking a path we never expected, but one that has been incredibly rewarding. It's a path filled with unexpected discoveries, quiet revelations, and a new understanding of what it truly means to be intimate. Yes, the physical aspects of our relationship have changed, but the emotional and spiritual dimensions have only grown richer and more profound than we could have ever imagined. Intimacy has shifted. It's no longer about youthful passion or spontaneity. It's now rooted in love, respect, and the shared history we've built over a lifetime. It's the kind of intimacy that can weather any storm, that can transcend the limits of time and age, and that will remain in all its beauty as we continue walking side by side. My husband, like so many men, initially struggled with the changes that come with age, especially when it came to how society expects men to maintain their physical strength and virility. As his body naturally began to change, he found himself weighed down by these societal pressures, the belief that he had to somehow remain the man he was in his youth, fit, powerful, and unyielding. I could see the toll it took on him. There were times when I witnessed the quiet sadness in his eyes, the moments when he felt inadequate, as if his worth was somehow diminished because he could no longer meet those relentless physical standards. It broke my heart, knowing that he was carrying this burden in silence, thinking that his value was tethered to his physicality. But as we began to open up to each other, sharing not just our fears but also our deepest truths, everything began to shift. Slowly, we both realized that the expectations we had placed on ourselves were not only unnecessary, they were unfair. Our relationship was not defined by physical standards but by something far deeper: the love, the respect, and the emotional intimacy we had built over the years. It was in the conversations we shared, the quiet moments of mutual understanding, and the way we stood by each other through every challenge that truly defined us, not the shape of our bodies or the number on the scale. My husband, in time, began to let go of the desperate need to prove something. Not to me, not to the world, not even to himself. Instead, he started embracing the man he was in the present, accepting the changes that had come with time, and finding peace in who he had become. This shift in perspective was nothing short of transformative. It brought a sense of liberation that we hadn't expected, a freedom that came from letting go of external judgments and embracing our true selves. Without the constant pressure of societal expectations weighing on us, we were finally able to explore intimacy in a way that felt real, authentic, and beautifully ours. We began to savor the small, seemingly insignificant moments that held so much meaning. The way we would touch each other's hands when sitting side by side, the way our laughter echoed through the room as we recalled old memories, the way we found solace and strength in leaning on one another. The physical intensity we once sought in our youth no longer seemed important. What we had now was more enduring, more meaningful, more sustaining. Physical intimacy didn't disappear from our relationship, but it evolved. It was no longer about meeting a checklist of acts or performing to some ideal. Instead, we learned to cherish the quieter moments of affection, the soft brush of a hand on the back, the tenderness in a hug that lingered a little longer, the gentle kiss that spoke volumes without needing words. The need to chase after the feverish passion of our younger years faded, replaced by a deep appreciation for the emotional and physical connection we had cultivated over time. And when things didn't go as planned, when our bodies didn't quite cooperate, or when the energy we once had seemed elusive, we didn't let frustration take root. Instead, we laughed. We laughed at ourselves, at the imperfection of our aging bodies, and in doing so, we found a deep sense of relief. Laughter became a form of acceptance, a way to navigate the challenges of growing older without bitterness, reminding ourselves that life, in all its messy beauty, doesn't need to be perfect to be fulfilling. Looking back, I am filled with so much gratitude. The journey we've taken together has been nothing short of extraordinary. Yes, it has had its challenges, its bumps along the way, but it has also been filled with profound moments of growth, discovery, and deepening love. The passion of youth may be fleeting, but the love we've nurtured and grown through the years is something far greater. It is a love that has been tested by time and experience, a love that has weathered the storms and continues to grow stronger. We have learned that intimacy is not a fleeting experience that fades with age. It is a lifelong journey, one that becomes more profound, more beautiful, and more meaningful as we grow older. Each phase of life offers unique opportunities to connect, to learn more about each other, and to deepen the bond that we share. As we age, the physical changes are inevitable. We can't stop them, but we don't have to let them define us. What defines us is the love we have for each other, the way we show up for one another, and how we've adapted and grown together. For anyone who is facing the inevitability of aging and the changes it brings, my message is simple and filled with compassion. Embrace the journey. Don't let the weight of societal expectations or the fear of physical decline hold you back from experiencing the full depth of intimacy. The true connection doesn't come from physical perfection. It comes from the emotional closeness, the vulnerability, and the willingness to show up, to love, and to be loved, no matter how much time has passed. As you grow older, you'll find that the love you've built over the years becomes your greatest strength, your most cherished gift. Aging together has been one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. It has taught me that love isn't about staying the same. It's about evolving together, finding new ways to connect, express affection, and continue choosing each other every single day through each new phase of life. To me, this is the true essence of intimacy, the love that continues to grow, deepen, and transform with time. As my husband and I continue to grow older, we find ourselves on a journey of transformation that neither of us could have ever predicted. This transformation has not only how we see each other, but also how we see ourselves. The process of aging, with all of its challenges, has allowed us to see intimacy and pleasure in a new light, far removed from the narrow definitions of youth. It's a love that has shifted beyond the physical, expanding into deeper emotional and spiritual dimensions that I never could have imagined when we were younger. In our younger years, like many couples, we were swept away by the rush of passion, the kind of physical intensity that only youth can provide. It felt like love in its purest form, something we measured by how physically connected we were. At the time, sex was the cornerstone of our intimacy. It was the way we expressed desire, love, and affection. But as the years passed and our bodies began to change, we found ourselves facing a new reality. This physical connection, while still important, was no longer the only way we could express love. We realized that we had to evolve if we wanted to preserve the profound connection that had always been the foundation of our relationship. For my husband, the changes were difficult to accept at first. Like so many men, he had been conditioned to believe that his worth was tied to his physical strength, virility, and sexual prowess. When those abilities began to fade, it shook him to his core. He struggled with feelings of inadequacy and questioned his place in our relationship. It was heartbreaking for me to see him go through this. The man I loved, the man I still loved deeply, was allowing these outdated ideals to cloud his self-worth. But then something beautiful happened. As we began to open up more, to share our fears and desires, we realized that by letting go of the old expectations and redefining what intimacy meant to us, we were freeing ourselves to experience a new kind of love. One that wasn't defined by physical acts or societal standards, but by emotional vulnerability, deep mutual understanding, and the quiet pleasures of simply being with one another. In those moments, we discovered that love didn't need to be expressed through grand gestures or physical intensity. It was enough to be with each other, to hold hands, to share a laugh, to simply be present. And in those moments, we found joy. Real joy. This realization was so freeing, so liberating. It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off our shoulders. We didn't need to prove anything anymore. True intimacy, we discovered, wasn't about physical acts. It was about presence, about being together and accepting each other, imperfections and all. As I reflect on the passage of time, I realize that the physical changes that come with aging are not to be feared or mourned, but rather, they are simply a natural part of life's beautiful journey. These changes, far from weakening us, have only served to strengthen our emotional and spiritual connection. There is a profound beauty in the way we now relate to one another, a beauty that we couldn't fully appreciate in our younger years when everything felt so rushed and focused on physical perfection. Now, we have come to treasure the more subtle, quiet expressions of love, the soft, tender moments that truly mark the depth of our intimacy. Gone are the days when intimacy was defined solely by passion and youthful energy. Now, the way we look at each other across the room, the gentle touch of a hand, the shared silence in the late hours of the night, these are the true markers of our connection. These moments remind us of the love we've built, of the history we share, and of the many adventures and trials we've weathered together. We have lived through so much, joy and sorrow, triumphs and struggles, and through it all, our bond has only deepened. In the early years, perhaps we focused more on the physical. Now, we see the love we share as something more profound, something far greater than youthful lust or fleeting attraction. The pressures we once felt to look a certain way, to perform a particular role in our relationship, have melted away. We've reached a point where we don't need to prove anything to one another. We've already proven what matters most, that our love has stood the test of time, that it has grown stronger with each passing year, and that it continues to evolve into something even more beautiful than we ever imagined. There's something deeply liberating in knowing that we no longer have to chase fleeting moments of physical perfection, but rather, we can simply be present with each other in ways that honor who we have become, both as individuals and as a couple. As our bodies have aged, our emotional and spiritual connection has blossomed. We've become more in tune with each other's needs, more patient, more understanding. Aging has brought wisdom and a deeper understanding of what truly matters in a relationship. In our younger days, we often rushed through life, not taking the time to listen, to hear one another. Now we've slowed down, and in that quiet space, we've discovered a tenderness in our intimacy that's far more meaningful than anything we could have known before. It's a tenderness born from years of shared experiences, from enduring life's storms together, and from understanding that love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. There's a new kind of pleasure that we experience now, and it's unlike anything we sought when we were younger. It's not the fiery passion that once consumed us. It's a gentler, quieter pleasure that comes from simply being with one another. It's the peace that settles over us as we hold hands, the comfort we find in each other's company, knowing that we have built something beautiful, something lasting. The physical intimacy that we share, though less frequent, is infused with a depth we have never experienced before. It's not about reaching some sort of physical climax anymore. It's about the emotional journey, the connection that has deepened and enriched our lives over the years. As we embrace the changes that aging brings, we also discover that intimacy doesn't just live in the bedroom. It's woven into every moment we share. It's in the way we care for each other when one of us is feeling unwell, in the laughter we share over the simplest things, and in the moments of silence that speak volumes. Those quiet moments of companionship, where words are unnecessary, have become the heart of our relationship. They remind us that intimacy is not confined to physical acts, but is a part of every aspect of life, from the way we support one another to the way we show up, day after day, as partners. Looking back, I realized that the changes aging brought were not to be feared but to be embraced. They were an invitation, a chance to redefine what intimacy and connection truly mean. The society we grew up in often told us that aging meant the loss of something vital, but what I've discovered is that it's not the loss of anything. It's the gain of something far more beautiful. The aging process isn't the end of intimacy. It's a new beginning, a chance to experience love in a way that's deeper, more fulfilling, and more profound than anything we could have imagined in our youth. True intimacy, I believe, is not about physical performance or meeting external expectations. It's about being present with your partner, supporting each other through the inevitable changes that life brings, and building a connection that grows stronger with time. For anyone facing the challenges that come with aging, I want to share a simple truth. Don't be afraid to let go of the old definitions of intimacy and pleasure. Let go of the societal pressures to remain youthful or physically perfect, because they only rob you of the chance to experience a deeper, more enriching connection. Aging is not the end. It's the start of something new, a new kind of intimacy that is built not on youthful exuberance, but on deep emotional connection, trust, and the beauty of simply being together. As my husband and I continue to age, we are still learning, growing, and discovering new ways to love and cherish one another. The pleasure we once sought through physical means has expanded into something much more enduring, a connection rooted in emotional closeness, shared memories, and the simple joy of being in each other's presence. I truly believe this is the greatest gift of all. Aging may change our bodies, but it also brings with it an opportunity to experience intimacy in ways that are richer, more meaningful, and more enduring than anything we could have experienced when we were younger. Love, in all its beauty, is not bound by time or physical limitations. It only grows deeper with each passing year. As my husband and I grow older together, we've discovered that love is not about what we look like or what we can do. It's about how we choose to be present for one another, how we choose to support each other, and how we cherish the life we've built together. Aging has taught us that true intimacy is a journey, and it's one worth embracing, fully and completely. As the years passed, we found ourselves shifting our focus in ways we had never imagined. We began to move away from the constant pressure of what we thought we were supposed to be doing and, instead, allowed ourselves to simply enjoy the unique connection we had built together. There was a time in our younger years when we thought intimacy was all about the big moments, the grand gestures, and the external validation of how we looked or how we performed. But as we grew together, we came to understand something much deeper and far more meaningful. This shift in perspective allowed us to experience intimacy in a way that was more profound, more complete, and undeniably more fulfilling than we had ever known before. It was a kind of intimacy that went beyond just physical closeness. It was emotional, spiritual, and, in many ways, life-changing. The shift didn't come overnight, but over time, as we stopped focusing on trying to meet some outside standard and simply allowed ourselves to be vulnerable with each other, something miraculous happened. We began to shed the weight of expectation, and in its place, we discovered a deep sense of peace and joy. Joy that came from the knowledge that we were enough as we were. No longer did we feel the need to perform for one another or anyone else. The pressure we once felt to fit some ideal of love and intimacy simply lifted. What replaced that pressure was something so much more beautiful. It was a quiet, contented kind of joy, the joy that comes from being with someone who knows you, who has seen you at your best and your worst, and yet still chooses to stand by your side. It was the joy of looking at one another and knowing, without a doubt, that we had created something extraordinary together. A life built on love, trust, and mutual respect. A life that, in its simplicity, felt like a profound blessing. Each day became a chance to deepen that bond, not through extravagant gestures or grand declarations, but through the ordinary, everyday moments that we now cherish so much more. We discovered that intimacy wasn't just about those romantic evenings or passionate encounters that society often romanticizes. It was in the smallest of moments. A shared laugh over a silly inside joke that only the two of us could truly understand. The kind of laughter that bubbles up spontaneously and is filled with the comfort of familiarity. It was in those long, drawn-out conversations about everything and nothing at all. Conversations that would start as casual chit-chat and slowly evolve into something much deeper, about our hopes for the future, our memories of the past, and all the dreams we still held close to our hearts. Those moments weren't just fleeting. They were the threads that wove the fabric of our connection, holding us tighter than any physical act could. And then there were the walks, those quiet strolls through the park, hand in hand, with no particular destination, just the simple joy of being together, of witnessing the world in its everyday beauty. We would watch the trees sway in the breeze, and hear the distant chatter of people passing by, and yet, it felt as though the world had slowed down just for us. Time seemed to stand still in those moments, and all that mattered was the simple act of being present with each other. In those tiny moments, we found the foundation of our relationship. They became the bedrock on which we built our love, so simple, yet so incredibly powerful. The weight of the world seemed to fall away as we allowed ourselves to be just two people who loved and trusted each other completely. It was in those moments that we truly felt the essence of intimacy, not as something to be achieved or perfected, but as something to be embraced with an open heart, free of judgment, and full of gratitude for the simple joy of sharing life. Alongside that shift in how we experienced intimacy, we learned one of the most important lessons of all: the power of acceptance, not just of each other, but of ourselves. We came to understand that aging, that beautiful, inevitable process, is not something to fear, not something to regret. It is a part of life that touches everyone, regardless of who we are or where we come from. The changes in our bodies, the softening skin, the wrinkles, the graying hair, were not signs of decline or failure. They were, in fact, the marks of a life well lived. They were the map of the journey we had taken together, the evidence of the laughter and the tears, the challenges and the triumphs, and the shared experiences that had shaped us into who we were at that moment. The changes in our bodies were not things to be ashamed of. They were to be celebrated as reflections of the life we had embraced. They spoke of all the years we had spent together, the memories we had created, and the wisdom we had gained along the way. I came to realize that each wrinkle was a testament to a laugh shared, each scar a reminder of a challenge overcome. I no longer looked at these changes with fear or sadness, but with gratitude and reverence for the life they represented. The marks of aging were not flaws to hide but badges of honor, proof of everything we had been through, all that we had learned, and how far we had come. We embraced these changes with open arms, for they reflected the love and joy we had shared, the wisdom we had gained, and the strength we had cultivated over the years. They reminded us that we had lived, we had loved, and most importantly, we had done it together. In this acceptance of ourselves, and of each other, we found a peace that had eluded us in our younger years. We were not afraid of the passage of time anymore. Instead, we celebrated it. Aging was not something to regret, but something to cherish. After all, it was a testament to the incredible journey we had shared, and the many more years of love, laughter, and growth that still awaited us. We realized that intimacy in its truest form is not just about physical closeness. It's about emotional connection, acceptance, and celebrating the beauty of the life we have built together. And in that, we discovered a kind of happiness that goes beyond the surface. A happiness rooted deep in the heart, where the true essence of love resides. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Instead of constantly dwelling on what we had lost, we made a conscious decision to shift our focus to what we had gained. This change in perspective became a profound turning point in our lives. What we discovered was truly beautiful, a much deeper understanding of each other, an enriched appreciation for the time we had left together, and an overwhelming sense of peace that settled over us, as if we had finally unlocked the secret to contentment. It wasn't just about surviving the passage of time, it was about embracing it and finding something more, something infinitely precious that we hadn't fully understood in our younger years. One of the most eye-opening realizations we had during this journey was that pleasure doesn't fade away as we grow older. No, it doesn't diminish. It simply evolves, taking on new and beautiful forms. In our youth, we sought pleasure in the physical, in the overwhelming intensity of sexual connection. The heat, the passion, the raw energy of youth. It felt like the essence of love. But as time moved on, we found that the most profound pleasures were no longer the fiery, fleeting moments of physical intimacy. Instead, they took root in the quiet, tender spaces of our daily lives. We found joy in the emotional closeness we shared, those moments of vulnerability when we allowed ourselves to truly open up and let the other person in. There was a deep sense of peace in the way we made each other feel valued and cared for, not just in the grand gestures, but in the smallest, most intimate ways. It's a kind of love that whispers in the quiet of the night, not demanding anything, just offering pure, unwavering companionship. We found pleasure in the simple act of being present with each other, the joy of knowing that, no matter what life threw at us, we had each other. In our younger years, we often didn't fully appreciate the beauty of simply being together without the distractions or expectations of the world. But as we grew older, the quiet moments became more precious, and the intensity of youth began to give way to something even more profound, a love that was steady, reliable, and deeply fulfilling. It may not have been the wild, passionate love of our youth, but in its place grew something more lasting, more real, more intimate, a truly timeless love. What surprised us the most was that as we began to embrace these changes, our relationship didn't weaken. It didn't fade away with the loss of physical intensity. No, it strengthened, and in ways we could never have imagined. Our bond became deeper and more solid because it wasn't based on the fleeting aspects of physical attraction or the pressures of sexual performance. Instead, it was built on something far stronger: emotional intimacy, trust, and a shared history of experiences. We learned that true intimacy isn't just about the act of sex itself. It's about the connection between two people, the way they see and understand each other, and the way they love and support one another through every chapter of life. True intimacy is the kind of love that doesn't ask for perfection, but simply for presence, authenticity, and the willingness to grow together, hand in hand, through the years. To anyone who may be walking this same path, my heartfelt advice is this: embrace it with open arms. Aging is not something to fear or regret. It's not a decline, it's an evolution. It's an opportunity. An opportunity to rediscover your relationship, to find new ways of connecting, and to experience a love that is more profound, more meaningful, and more fulfilling than anything you could have ever imagined in your younger years. It's a love that teaches you the true depth of companionship, and in that depth, you'll find a peace that will sustain you for the rest of your days. Thank you for joining me on this deeply personal journey, one filled with reflections on love, intimacy, and the many transformations that life brings as we grow older. I hope this video has offered you comfort, insight, and perhaps a new perspective on what it means to love and be loved across the years. Aging brings change to all aspects of life, including intimacy, yet these changes can be gateways to deeper, more meaningful connections if we embrace them with openness and compassion. So, as we close, I want to ask you to reflect. What have you learned from this video? Maybe it's a reminder that intimacy doesn't have to be defined by physicality alone, or a realization that emotional closeness can deepen as we learn to communicate more openly with our partners. Perhaps it's the simple, beautiful truth that real love evolves, becoming richer and more resilient with each stage of life. Take a moment to think about one insight you've gained today that you can bring into practice in your relationships and journey through life. Please share that one thing you've learned in the comments below. Whether it's a lesson, a reflection, or even a question, your thoughts can help create a community of wisdom and shared experiences, where we can all learn from each other's journeys. If this video touched you or gave you something valuable, I encourage you to show your support. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing stories and insights that help us all reflect and grow. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thank you for watching, for being part of this journey, and for allowing these conversations to deepen our understanding of love, connection, and the beauty of aging together.